Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new tutorial series on a simple database app with Python using MongoDB. So for those of you that are not familiar with MongoDB, this is what's known as a no-SQL database. It's super easy to use, especially in Python. And what we're going to be doing here is actually setting up a remote database. So we're going to first start by working a little bit on a remote Linux server. Don't worry if that sounds intimidating to you. I'll be walking through every step. All you have to do is kind of just follow along with me to get things set up. And what that means is that the database that we create is not just going to be local on your machine. It will actually be hosted in the cloud. So say you actually want to make some kind of real application that maybe you're going to deploy or that people from different machines are going to use. No problem. This will definitely work for it. And that's why I wanted to do this series to show you how we can actually set up a remote database. So anyways, once we get that database set up, then I'll be talking about how we actually work with MongoDB, how we can connect to that database, and then we'll wrap kind of our aim of this series, which is going to be to just learn about databases, to a simple project. And the project that I'm going to be talking about here is kind of a basic car dealership system. So what I'm going to do is have it so that we'll have a bunch of cars in the database. A user can kind of search through and look for all of those cars, and then they can quote unquote purchase a car. And I'll show you how we would handle the database operations around that, and then the user input and all of that. With that being said, sorry for the long intro. Let's get started in just 1 second after a quick word from the sponsor of this series, who's actually going to be allowing us to use all of this database technology for free. I need to start by giving a massive thank you to Linode for sponsoring this video and this series. I've been using Linode for well over a year now, and I can personally attest to what a great company they are. In fact, they are so great that they've actually set up a live event on September 29th at 11 a.m. EST for me to run through the second part of this series live with a ton of time for questions and interactions from all of you. You can sign up if you want to attend this live event from the link in the description. If you can't make it on the 29th, register anyways, and you'll get the on-demand lab when in your inbox. Now, let me tell you a bit about Linode. So Linode makes it easy and affordable to host your own app, service, or site in the cloud. Maybe you started with an entry-level hosting service when you were new to coding. Linode is your step up to powerful, fast, fully configurable cloud computing. With server plans starting at just $5 plus no hidden fees or surprise overages, Linode offers no-nonsense hosting at a price you can afford. Linode has a full API integrating with tools like Terraform and Kubernetes, making it the perfect environment for development projects. Get started today by heading to the link in the description, and you'll be given access to $100 in free Linode credits. So one last thank you to Linode. Now let's go ahead and continue the video. All right, so once you've signed up for your free $100 credit and made your new account on Linode, we should be good to go and actually create our first server. So obviously the first step here is going to be to make a server. The server is going to store our MongoDB instance, if you want to call it that, and we will connect to the server when we actually want to use MongoDB. Now, it's really easy to do this to actually set up the server. We're going to press on create. We're going to click on Linode, which is just the standard server that we want to use. And then we're going to actually go ahead and click on Marketplace. Now, just note that within here, you can select like all your different plan options, what you want, like root password. You can make the server as configured as you want to whatever your need is. But in our case, we're going to go to Marketplace and select the MongoDB image right here. Now, essentially what this does, if we select one of these here, and you can see there's a bunch of them like GitHub, Minecraft, so on, this just sets up the server to automatically have this technology or tool or whatever it is installed on there for us. So we'll select MongoDB. That means we don't need to install that and set it up. That's going to be really nice. And now what we're going to do is enter our MongoDB password. Now make sure you remember what this password is. That's going to be mine. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is because we are going to need to use that when we actually set up MongoDB. Next, regions. I live close to Toronto, so I'm going to select Toronto. Obviously, select the server that's closest to you or where most of your users would be. Next, we get to choose what plan we actually want for our server. Note that the cheapest plan here is the Nanode. It's $5 a month, 1 gig of RAM, 1 CPU. That'll actually be enough if you want to use that for this tutorial. Now, since I have a few credits on here, I'm just going to use Linode 4 gigabytes, so 4 gigs of RAM, 2 CPUs. And again, that will be more than enough that we need for this tutorial. Keep in mind that if you're going to have an app that has a lot of database read and write operations, you're probably going to want to go up to maybe 8 gigs of RAM or mess around and see what you actually might want to use here for your hardware. But obviously, the better the hardware, the faster your database is going to be. Next, you can change the name if you want. I'll just leave it like this. And then you need a root password. For the root password, again, I'm not going to tell you guys what this is because you will see my server IP, so you'll be able to log in. But select something that is a strong root password. You don't want to get hacked on your server, obviously, and then press create. Now, this is going to take a minute or two to actually create the Linode. It just has to set everything up, install MongoDB, and all that stuff. Once that's done, I'll be back and I'll show you how we can actually get into our Linode and start working on it directly. So my Linode is ready to go now. What we need to pay attention from this page before we leave it is just the IP address. So grab the IP address. You can copy it just by pressing the button. We're going to need that for our server. And then obviously remember your root password and your MongoDB password. Those could be the same. We're going to need both of those in a few steps in just a second. All right, so now what we need to do is actually get onto our server and start working on it. So what we're going to do is download PuTTY. This is a tool that we can use to just SSH into our server and actually start working on it, remotely, I guess, if you want to say. So from this computer, we can access it, we can run commands on it and do what we need to do. So I'm going to download PuTTY. Actually, I already have it downloaded, but I will leave a link in the description where you guys can get it from. Once that's downloaded, open it up, and then we will go through the next steps. All right, so once PuTTY is open, what I'm going to do is simply input the IP address right here in the bar where it says hostname or IP address. And then I'm going to make a new profile and save this in here. So I'm just going to say tutorial. You can see I've been testing this out before, and I will simply press save. That will save the IP address and any of the other settings I choose here. Now, just to make it easier for you guys to read, you don't have to do this. I'm going to go to appearance and change my cursor size or font size, sorry, to be 22, not 222, 22, so you guys can actually read this terminal window when it comes up. All right, so then once you've done that, you can go back to session. You can press on your profile and you can press save. If you change the font size, and that will just save all the settings. Next, I'm going to press open. You might get a pop-up like this. If you see this, press yes. I'm not going to explain really what that is, but you can just press yes, and then we're good to go. Now we need to log into our server. So assuming your server is up and running and you type the IP address in, you should be following along at this point. And at this step, we're going to sign in as the root user, and then we're going to use the root password, which is the one we inputted when we set this server up. So I'll type my password in. You should see if the password is correct, you get something that looks like this. And now what we're going to do is start setting up our MongoDB server. So there's a few steps here. They're not super complicated, but you need to make sure you follow them precisely. If you don't, you're going to have problems connecting to the MongoDB server, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to go back and figure out what you missed rather than just doing it correct the first time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to type mongo -u, and then we're going to type admin -p authentication database admin. Now, what this is doing is pretty much starting the MongoDB shell, and we're saying, okay, we're going to use the admin user, which is the default user for MongoDB. It always has an admin user, and we're going to use the authentication database, which is admin. What we're going to do here as soon as we get inside of the shell, you can see it's asking me for a password for admin. This is going to be the password we inputted when we were setting up the server. What we're going to do here inside of the shell is we're going to add a new user that is going to have access to a certain database, the database that we'll be using for our project. So the first thing we need to type is use admin. What this is saying is use the admin database. So what we want to do is add a new user into the admin database that's not actually the admin user, because we want to give our application its own user to access the MongoDB database. And we just need to add its credentials to this database. So what we need to do now is we need to type db.create, and I can't zoom or can't scroll up, unfortunately, but we'll say db.create user. And then what we're going to do is inside of curly braces, inside of other parentheses like this, we're going to say user : we're going to put the name of the user. So in this case, I'm just going to pick Tim. We're going to go comma PWD, which stands for password, obviously. We're going to put our password in double quotation marks. I'm just going to make my password Tim. That's fine. You guys will be able to log into the server, but I will change it after. And then next, we're going to say roles. Now this one is important. What we put inside of roles is what we want our user to be able to do. So if we want them to be able to read from a certain database or write to a certain database, we write it inside of here. So in this case, we want the user that we're setting up here, which is Tim, to be able to read and write from whatever database we're going to use when we actually start connecting to MongoDB. So we haven't created this database yet, but we're just going to put in what the name of it will be, and then our user will be authenticated on that database when we eventually create it. So what I'm going to put inside of here is curly braces. So I know this seems a little bit confusing. We'll add some text on the screen so you can see exactly what this looks like, but I'm going to put curly braces. I'm going to put role and then colon, and then inside of double quotation marks, I'm going to type read, write like this. It needs to be spelled like this. If you just want it to be read, obviously you would just write read. If you just want it to be write, you would just write write. And this is telling us what permissions this user is going to have for whatever database we specify here. Now I'm going to type DB. This is saying, okay, what is the database name that this user has this role for? And in this case, we're going to call this dealership. So the database we're going to use is dealership. I know it's cutting off. Again, we'll put the text on the screen, and now I can simply press enter, and we can see that it successfully added the user. So if you get that text, you are good to go. What we can type next is quit. Quit with 2 brackets. That will exit out of the MongoDB shell. Now what we need to do is simply set up authentication and make sure our server is listening on the right IP address. And then what we can do is connect to it and actually start writing some Python code. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to type sudo nano. Nano is simply kind of the text editor for Linux. And then we're going to type /etc/mongodb.conf. So this is simply the configuration file for our MongoDB database. What we're going to do here is once we press enter, we're going to actually just make sure that this is listening on the right IP address, and then enable authorization, to make sure that we can't access this database unless we're an authorized user. By default, authorization is not enabled, so we have to enable it. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to use the arrow keys on our keyboard to go down and move to where the net section is, where it says network interfaces. And what we're going to do is change where it says bind IP to say, instead of 127.0.0.1, 0.0.0.0.0, like that. So 0.0.0.0. What this is saying is bind our IP to our public IP address rather than our local IP address. So if we just have it, if we left it the way it was, what that would mean is we can only access this server if we are on this server. So it's like running on the local host, if you want to think of it that way. Obviously, we don't want that. So we want this to run on the public IP address. So we'll change the bind IP to be that. Next, we're going to go to the security page, or the security tab, or whatever you want to call it. Notice how there's a little, I guess, what do you call this, number sign here, a pound sign. We're just going to delete that. And then under security, we're going to type authorization. So let's not tab all the way in. We're going to type 2 spaces, and then authorization. Make sure you spell it correctly. And we're simply going to say enabled like that. And actually, I have to put enabled in quotation marks. My apologies, just checked that. But authorization and then colon enabled. So what this is going to do is make sure that we cannot access the database again unless we are authenticated, and we will use the user we just created to authenticate. All right, so to save this, you're going to type Control X on your keyboard like that, and then you're going to simply press Y. Next, you can press enter to say, yes, this is the file name I want to save it to, and then it should save. Last thing we need to do is restart MongoDB, and then we can get out of this server and start writing some code. So to restart MongoDB, we're going to type sudo service mongod and then restart like that. So give this a second, it will restart the MongoDB service. Now we can actually close PuTTY and get out of it, and we can go ahead and connect to this from some Python code. All right, so we've almost reached the coding part. There's one more thing we need to do, which is install what's known as like an engine or a driver for MongoDB. Usually MongoDB works with JavaScript, but since we're going to be using it with Python, what we need to do is install a module called PyMongo. So what we'll have to do is go into our command prompt or terminal if we're on Windows or Linux or Mac, obviously the appropriate one for that. And we're going to type pip install PyMongo. Now, of course, you need Python installed on your system for this to work. I'm going to assume you have that already. If you are on Windows, this is the command you want to type. If you're on Mac, you want to type pip3 install pymongo. And if you're on Linux, it will be pip3 as well. So go ahead and type that, press enter. You'll see for me, it's already installed. But if for some reason this command does not work for you, that means you don't have pip installed or it's not on your system path. So what I will do is I will leave a link in the description, as well as a card in the top. I believe it'll be left-hand corner. I think I'm pointing to the right one. And you will see a link that says how to install Pygame. Don't worry, you can follow along with that video and it will show you how to fix your pip. And instead of typing Pygame, you're just gonna type pymongo. So pymongo is obviously the module we want to be installed. Anyways, follow along with that. Once that is installed in your Python interpreter or your Python version, we're gonna open up a new Python file. I'm gonna use VS Code for this tutorial, but you can use whatever you want. And we're simply gonna type import Pygame like that. Or sorry, what am I saying? Pygame, import pymongo. I've been using Pygame too much recently. Now what we're gonna do is just press the run button here and just make sure that everything runs, we don't get any errors. And if you've made it this far, then we are good to go and we can now connect to our server. So remember I said keep track of that server IP address. Don't worry if you forgot it, you can go back to the Linode website and grab it. In fact, I might have to do that in 1 second. But what we're gonna do is import pymongo, and then we're gonna say client equals pymongo.mongo client like that. And inside of here, we're going to type kind of a URL that will allow us to connect to our server. So let me grab my server IP address, which I need, and then I'll show you how we put the URL in and how we connect. All right, so I got my IP address. Now what I'm going to do is I just put in a variable here just to store it for right now. And I'm going to show you how we type in this URL. So to connect, what we're going to do is inside of this right here, instead of Mongo client, we're going to type MongoDB : // we're going to type our username for the user we just created, which in this case is Tim for me. We're going to type : the password for that user. My password was Tim. I just kept it the same as the username. We're going to type the @, and then we're going to put this IP address in afterwards. And then we can simply do a / and we should be good to go. This is all we need to do to actually connect to our remote MongoDB server. So we just go MongoDB : / Tim, which is our username, : Tim, which is the password for that user, and then @ and the IP address of our server that you can get from Linode, followed by one more /, and that should be all we need. So what we can do now is simply press run and make sure that this works. If you don't get any errors, we should be working. Everything should be functioning fine. And now what we're going to do is actually create a database, create a collection, and create some documents. So this brings me into the first thing I need to explain about MongoDB. Rather than having tables and schemas and all the stuff you may have in other database systems, there's 3 main things that we talk about here in MongoDB. The first is a database. A database can store multiple tables if you want to think of it as an SQL database, but really what a table is referred to in MongoDB, which is just a collection of a certain type of data, is a collection. So it actually makes sense to be called a collection. But you can think of the hierarchy like database, so a database like that, collection, and then underneath collection, we have what's known as documents. So one database can store multiple collections, and the documents are actually the pieces of information that are in each collection. So maybe we have a collection for our purpose called cars, right? Then inside of cars, we would have all of the information relating to a specific car, and that'd be stored inside of the documents, right? So each document would store one car, the collection stores all of the cars, and the database stores everything related to the dealership. So we'll have some other collections in here, maybe like our customers, maybe like any purchase orders or anything like that, right? That is kind of the way that this works. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a database. So to create a database is actually really easy. I'm going to say db equals, and then client, open 2 brackets like this. And inside of here, I'm going to type the name of my database. So what do I want? I want to name my database dealership. You need to name it this because, again, we added the permissions for our user to read and write to the database dealership. And then let's run this and see what happens. All right, so nothing went wrong. We should have technically created this database when we just wrote that line. I know this is like, how did you just create a database doing that? But the way it works is that if we say client, which is just the MongoDB client, and then we put brackets like this, what it's saying is, okay, does a database exist called dealership? If it does, access that database. If it doesn't, create a new one. So we're saying DB equals client dealership. Next, what I want to do is create a collection. So remember, we can have multiple collections inside of each of our databases. So I'm going to have 3 collections. And what I'm going to do for this project is I'm going to have cars, I'm going to have customers, and I'm going to have purchases. So essentially a purchase will link a car to a customer, and then obviously a car and a customer are pretty straightforward. So I'm going to say cars equals, DB, and then inside of here, I'm simply going to call the collection cars. So now we have a reference to the database, and this works the same way. We want to create a collection. We just add our braces like this. It says, okay, does this collection exist? If it does, access it. Otherwise, create one. So cars equals DB cars. We're going to say customers equals DB customers. And then finally, we're going to say purchases equals DB purchases. Now, technically, these collections will not be created until we insert a document into them. So I just want to show you how we insert something in really quickly. I know I'm kind of skipping through a few things because we need to actually create the collection, and then I can prove to you that it was created because we inserted something. So a document is simply some kind of dictionary. So if we're thinking about Python, if we have a dictionary like this, a document is really just key value pairs. So it's key and then value like that. The key can be whatever we want. The keys do not need to be the same in all of the documents that are in the same collection, but we just have some key and then some value associated with that key. So if we were talking about cars, we might have something like the make, right? And then maybe that's equal to, say, Ford, right? Or Honda or Mazda or whatever it may be. And then we would have a model, and maybe that's equal to, the Ford Edge or whatever it's going to be. That's kind of how we create a document. So let me show you, first of all, how we insert something, and we'll just insert something into the cars collection. So I'm going to say cars dot insert underscore many, or sorry, not insert many, insert one. That's leading to what we'll do next, but cars dot insert one. And then inside of here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a document. So to create a document, I just open up a dictionary, and now what I need to do is add the key value pairs. So we'll delete this one after, but I'm just going to say make, and then I'll say this is a Ford, and then I'll say model, and this is an Edge. All right, so we will insert one. You're not going to see anything happen, but let's just insert one and see if we get any problems. We don't. That's awesome. All right, so now that we inserted something into the cars collection, let's see how we can actually retrieve it and look at it. So to look at something in MongoDB, what we can do is instead of cars.insert1, we can say cars.find. So I'll get into this in more detail in a second, but if I want to look at all of the entries in a certain collection or all of the documents in a certain collection, I simply just put an open document like this, so just open braces, because what we could do inside of here is add what we call a filter, or I guess a filter is the best way to say it, or a query if you want to put it that way, and that means we'll only look for documents that match what we put inside of here. So technically, if we pass an empty document, everything will match an empty document because everything is a document, right? If that makes any sense. But if I were to put in here, say like make colon and then Ford, this would only return to me cars that have the make that is equal to Ford. So again, we'll get into that later, but I just want to show you how we can look at something so that we can prove that it's actually in here. So result equals cars.find, and then I'm going to print result like that. So let's run this, and you can see that if we have a look here, we get pymongo.cursor.cursor object at some memory location. So obviously that's gibberish to us. That doesn't mean very much. So what we need to do is actually figure out, okay, well, this returned to us something, but how can I see what that is? So since this actually returns to us a cursor, which we just saw, what we need to do is actually iterate over that cursor if we want to get all of the values that are from it, right? So I clearly can't just print result. What I need to do is actually loop over it. And then what I can do is look at all of those results and do something with those in my Python code. So what I can do is say for results in, and this should really say results because there could technically be multiple things here if we had inserted multiple documents. And now what I can do is print the result. So let's run this now. And notice, I know it's popping up small here. We have this document that tells us an ID, a make, and a model. And notice this is the make and model that we inserted. So that is kind of the basics on how you grab and how you insert something. Obviously, I'm going to go into more in depth. And first, though, what I want to cover is this thing called ID. So notice that there's this underscore ID. It's equal to an object ID. What that is telling us is this is the unique identifier for this document. So every time we insert something into a collection, it needs to have a unique ID. Now we can set the ID ourselves if we want, or what we can do is simply just let MongoDB do it for us. So if when I inserted something, I actually added a field that said underscore ID, then that ID that you just saw here would be overridden with whatever we passed it. But since we didn't give it the actual ID, it just automatically generated one for us. So that's actually a benefit of using MongoDB and inserting it like that. It can just generate the ID for us. But obviously, if we want, we can override the ID and have it be like ID1, ID2. As long as it's unique and there's not going to be something else that's inserted with the same ID, no problem, we're good to go. And of course, the reason we need a unique ID is because we need a way to differentiate documents, even if they have the same information in them. So what I'm going to show you now is actually a tool we can use to view our databases and collections and documents, so we don't have to keep running these manual queries when we insert something in the database. So what you can do is go to the link in the description. It's called MongoDB Compass, and this is just a really cool tool. It's made by MongoDB themselves. It allows us, again, to connect to the database and then just view it. So select whatever version you want. I'm going to go with just the Windows 64-bit 7 Plus, the EXE version, and press download. Now mine's actually already downloaded, so I'll cancel that. But once you guys finish the download, then obviously come back and we're going to open up that tool and I'll show you how it works. All right, so once you open up the tool, all we actually need to do is just grab the URL that we use to connect here from our code, except we don't want the quotation marks this time, obviously. And we're just going to pass it in here. So just do Control V, and you can see that we'll just have MongoDB : / and then username, password. So username : password at, and then the IP address that it's at. We'll press connect. That should authenticate us, and you can see all of the databases that we have. Notice you can actually create stuff from here as well. So you can mess around and just actually create kind of some data if you wanted to query it on your own or something like that. But anyways, I'm going to press on dealership. Now, notice we have a collection called cars. Note that even though I made customers and purchases, there's no collection there yet, simply because we haven't added a document into the collection, so it was not created. All right, so now I'm going to press on cars. And when we go inside here, we can see that car object that we made. We have make, Ford, and model edge. So we'll use this tool. I'm going to leave it open in the background just so that we can check what's happening with our database when we start performing some of these operations. All right, so I've showed you how to add something in. I've talked about what a document is. I want to be very clear that when we create documents and we put them inside of a collection, they don't need to be the same. So if you were looking at like a standard SQL database, every single document that you would put in there, every single entry or row had to look the same, meaning it had to have the same amount of columns. It had to have a certain type of information. It's what's known as a schema that was being enforced on the data you were sending in. Now with MongoDB, that is not the case. We can store anything we want in the collections. So that's good and that's bad, but just keep that in mind. So what I want to do right now is I actually want to add 3 functions inside of here that let us add information to the cars database, the customers database, and the purchases database. So I'm going to go through this quickly because it's pretty straightforward, but first we're going to say define add cars. And what I'm going to do is pretty much define what I want the cars database or cars collection to look like. So what keys do I want in there? What values do I want in there? Well, what I want is I want a make, I want a model, I want the year of the car, I want the engine horsepower. We'll just put a lot of stats here so that it's interesting later on when we do some queries. I'm going to go with the vehicle. Actually, no, I don't want to do that one. Let's do make, model, year, engine horsepower, MSRP, meaning the price of it, and then we'll add actually, that's all we need for right now. Okay, so these are the few things that we're going to have to pass to add cars or add car when we want to create a new vehicle in our database. Now what we'll do in here is we'll say document equals, and we'll actually just make the document and then we'll insert it on the next line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say make : make. I'm going to say model inside of quotation marks with the capital so it's nice and formatted. Model : model. We're going to say year colon year, and oops, year colon year. I'm going to say engine horsepower colon and then engine horsepower. And you get the point. We're going to say MSRP colon MSRP. Now, actually, this probably shouldn't be capitals. We're going to make this lowercase just to make this proper. MSRP. And finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say date added like that colon, and I'm going to import at the top of my program date time. So this is built into Python. You don't need to install it, but import date time. And then here we're going to say datetime.datetime.now. This is simply going to give us the current date so we can tell when we actually added this entry to the database. Next, what we're going to say is, well, what collection do we want to insert this into? Cars. So we're going to say cars.insert _1, and we'll simply put the document that we just created in there. And in fact, we're actually going to return this. And the reason for that is that this will return to us some kind of object that tells us about the status of what we just inserted. The most important thing is it actually allows us to type the following. So say I said car equals add car, and I added all my entries. I could type car.inserted _ID, and this would tell me the ID of this document that I just inserted. The reason that's important is because we didn't set the ID, so we don't know it. So if we want the ID, we have to return this value, which will give us the ID of whatever we just inserted if we call .insertID on it. Hope that makes sense, but that's the basis of this function. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to create the customer function. So define add customer. I'm going to say first underscore name, last name, and DOB, which stands for date of birth. For our customer database or our customer collection, I'm just going to have it so we have their first name, last name, and date of birth. We obviously can add more, but since this is a tutorial, I'm not going to go crazy with all of the fields. So I'll say document equals, and then I'm going to say first name colon first underscore name. I'm going to say last name colon last name. I'm going to say date of birth is DOB. And then finally, I'm going to say date added, and I'm going to add the same thing that we had up here. So datetime.datetime.now. All right, so hopefully you're getting the hang of this. Next, we're going to add a purchase. And I'm going to talk now about what we're going to do with this purchase, what do you want to call it, document, collection, and so on. All right, so now we need to talk about what a purchase actually is and how we're going to kind of set up this collection. So essentially what I want to do with the purchase collection is I want to be able to link a customer to all of the cars that it's purchased. Now remember that each document that we add has a unique ID, and that's unique within the collection. So technically, if I have an ID for a car and I have an ID for a customer, if I can somehow store those together, I can determine that a certain car was bought by a certain customer, and that a certain car was or that a certain customer bought a certain car. So the other way around, obviously. Now, some people, what they might do, if you're familiar with other databases, is they might do something like, okay, let's just add a field to customers that says purchases. And inside of here, what we'll do is we'll just store a list of all of the cars that the customer purchased. Now, that would work technically if we wanted to figure out what cars a customer purchased and store that on the customer. The reason that might not be the best thing to do is because if we have any other information relating to the purchase of the car, say like how much they have on financing, how much money they put down, what method of purchase they did, when they bought the car, it's going to be tough to store all of that within the customer. And it doesn't really make sense to have the customer collection itself storing anything other than information about the customer. So what we'll do instead is we'll simply create a purchases collection. And inside of the purchases collection, we will have a document that has the ID of the car, the ID of the customer, and then any other information we want associated with the purchase. So let me show you what I mean. But for the parameters here, I'm going to say car ID, customer underscore ID, and then method. Now, method is just going to stand for method of payment. I'm just kind of making up some fields so that we have some more information inside of here. Obviously, this would usually be much larger, but hopefully you're getting the point. So what I'm going to do is say car ID colon car underscore ID, and I'll explain this more thoroughly in a second. Customer ID colon customer ID, and then method like this is equal to method. All right, and then finally we'll say date, so like the date that this happened and this was purchased, and we can simply just add, I don't know why I needed to scroll up for that, datetime.datetime.now. Great, so then what we'll do is we'll do the same thing. We'll insert this in, and in fact, I forgot to insert it inside a customer, so we'll do that in 1 second. We're gonna say purchases.insert1 document, and then return that, and just finish this off up here. Return customers.insert1 document. Great. So the way this is going to work is we're going to take an ID of a document that's a customer, right? And a document that's a car. We're going to store that inside of the purchase, and then we're going to store the method and the date. This way, if we ever want to check what cars a customer has purchased, we can look through all of the purchases and just check if the customer ID of that purchase is equal to the customer that we're looking at. And in the next video, what I will do is I will discuss how we can do that and go through some more advanced queries and stuff like that. But that is the basis for adding all of these things in, and hopefully that's kind of making sense. So what I'll do now is I'm going to add a customer, and I'll add a purchase, and I'll kind of show you what I mean. All right, so now let's add a customer, and let's add a purchase, and let's make sure everything is working. In fact, what I'm actually going to do is add another car. You'll see why it's just going to make some things simpler for us. I'm going to say car equals add underscore car, and then what's the information we need? We want the make, model, year, engine, horsepower, and MSRP. So let's say the make is going to be a Mazda. Let's say the model is a CX-5. What else do we need? We need year, engine, horsepower, MSRP. Let's go 2020. Let's go horsepower 250, and let's go with MSRP of 45,000. I have no idea if that's correct, but let's just do that. Next, let's add a customer and a purchase. Let's go customer equals add underscore customer. Let's give it a name. Tim Tech for the last name, and then for date of birth, let's go July 20th, 2000. That is actually my birthday. And then we'll go with purchase equals add underscore purchase. And now what we need to do is we need to add the ID of the car, the ID of the customer, and the method. Now, fortunately for us, what we can do is we can simply say car.inserted ID, because we just inserted it, so we can grab the ID. We can say customer.inserted ID, and we can say method, the method of payment. I'll just make it up and say cash. All right, so now these technically should be added into our database. I'm going to hop over to the other tool after I run this. So let's run it now and make sure that that worked. All right, so I'm over here. I just pressed the refresh button to refresh the database here. And you can see that now we have those other collections, so customers and purchases. If I go in customers, we can see the customer I just added. And if I go in purchases, we can see the car ID, customer ID, method, and the date that was added. If I go to cars, we can see the 2 cars that we have. So that is, again, how we actually insert all of this stuff. Now I'll quickly show you how we can actually delete stuff and then how we can update stuff. All right, so to learn about updating and deleting, I need to quickly cover a basic kind of querying thing, which I've already shown a little bit. But essentially, the way that we get specific data from this database is we'll use the collection. So we'll say cars, we'll say .find, and you could say .find underscore 1. That's fine. That will just give you the first one that pops up in the query that we find. You can use some other ones, find one and delete, find one and replace. There's all kinds of methods we can use. So if I show you one that you haven't seen before, or you think of another way, it doesn't necessarily mean that's wrong. It's just another way to do it. But typically what I do is I say cars.find, and then inside of here, what I will do is have a collection, and I will simply put the filters that I want to find. So if I only want to look for cars that are the make of Mazda, then I would do this. I would say make Mazda. Now, if I wanted all the cars that were the make of Mazda and the model of CX3, then I would say model, comma, CX3. Now, what this next parameter is, there's 2 parameters to find here. What it allows you to do is not only to filter what you want to look for, but to filter the columns that you want to be returned. So what you can do is you can add another set of brackets here, And then you can simply say, okay, I want the make column. So if you want the make column, you would say make:1, which stands for yes, I want this column. You would say, okay, I also want the model column. So I'd say model:1. And then any other columns you don't mention other than the ID column will automatically not be given back to you, which means it will return to you only the make and the model of whatever cars you find, as well as the ID. Now, this is kind of tricky because the way they set this up is strange. You can't technically like write make0 model1. What that would mean is just give me the model column because model has the 1 beside it. A 0 means don't give me that. You can only use ones or zeros. So say I wanted all the columns except make and model. Then I would go make0 model 0. It would give me everything else other than make and model. Now, the only exception to this is that if you add the _ID field, which is on every single, document, you can change this to be 0 or 1, and that doesn't mean that the make and model have to change, right? So I could do something like ID 0 and then 1, 1, which means just give me the make and model, don't include the ID. Now, if I said ID 1 and I said make 0 model 0, that means I'm just gonna get the ID and all the other columns except the make and model. Hopefully that makes sense. You can mess around with it, but anyways, that's kind of how you find stuff. So I'm gonna say cars.find, that's how we query. And if I run over that, like we've seen, it'll give me all the documents that are like that. Now, if I wanna remove something, it's the same thing. So I say cars.remove, and what this will do is remove any documents that fit this description. So let's actually just do it with not the Mazda, but let's do it with the Ford. So let's say Ford, and let's say edge, and let me just run this. And cars.remove is deprecated. Oh, sorry, it's not remove. My bad, guys. It is delete. So I can say delete 1. And what this will do is delete only one entry that has this. So if it finds this, whenever it finds this, whether it's going like from top to bottom or however it's searching, it will just delete the first one it finds. And if I go delete many, this will delete anything that is that fits this description. So hopefully that makes sense. This also returns an object. So I can say result equals cars.delete many, and then I could say result.deleted count. And that will tell me how many things have been deleted. I think there's also a deleted IDs. Maybe not, maybe it's just deleted count. That's telling you how many things were removed. Anyways, let's just run this with delete many and see if this works. Seems to have worked. I'm gonna go back to the tool here, refresh my cars, and notice that the Ford is gone. For some reason, there's 3 Mazdas. I think I might have accidentally ran that code to create the Mazdas multiple times, but you notice that that Ford Edge is now gone. All right. Oh yeah, that's because these are all here and I didn't delete it and I was running this a few times. But anyways, you get the point. That's how you delete. All right, now I'm going to show you how we can update. So instead of doing delete many, you can say update many. You can pick what you want to update. So in this case, I want to update anything that matches this criteria. And then this one's kind of weird. What you have to use is this like little set thing. So you do a $ and then set. And what this is saying is, okay, I want to set this attribute to be this value. Now there's a lot more of these as well that you can use, but I'm not going to talk about them here. So I'm going to say set, and then inside of another set of curly braces, I'm going to go, all right, what do I want to update? So in this case, maybe I want to change the, and I'll have to change this to be a Mazda. Maybe I want to change the make of all the Mazda CX-3s to be a Ford. I know that's obviously doesn't make any sense, but let's just do that. So let's say make and then colon, and we're just going to put this as Ford. So that is saying set this column to be this. So let's actually try that and just see if this works. All right, so it doesn't look like anything went wrong. Let's refresh this and let's see. And since I have CX5 here and I put CX3 there, obviously that's going to be wrong. So let's change this to CX5 and let's run this now. And let's have a look and refresh. And we can see that now the make of all of these has been changed to Ford. So of course you can set more than one thing. Inside of here, I can change the model as well. So I could say model colon and then change this to just be an edge. So we're changing all of that to be a Ford edge. In fact, let's just run that and see if that updates. And well, it's because now the make is no longer Mazda. So I have to change this, sorry, to be a Ford. That's why that wasn't working. Now, if we actually query the right thing and update it and refresh, we can see that the model has been changed to an edge. So that is the basic operations in MongoDB. That's how you update, that's how you delete, that's how you add. And in the next video, we're going to actually add more to this project to add some kind of like user interface and allow people to actually, well, it won't really be a user interface. It'll be more of like a text console that will allow people to kind of query through cars. We'll add a bunch more cars, and we'll do some other more interesting stuff with the database, like some more advanced queries, some more advanced updates, deletes, and just everything you would probably need to do in a project. I'll be showing that in the next video. So I apologize that this was long. I really did want to go over everything and make sure you guys understand, as well as really focus on setting up this server so you guys could authenticate and connect and be able to use this in a real production application. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Look out for the next video. Reminder that there is a live event running on September 29th. That is kind of what the next video is going to be. I'm going to be recording that live event that's hosted by Linode. You guys can check all the details related to that in the description. And then I will be taking that recording and I will be posting that on YouTube so you guys can kind of feel like you were at the live event, even if you are not able to make it. So anyways, if you enjoyed, of course, like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.